And this is the message for all of China's neighbors. Guard your borders well, because the dragon has a bad habit of swallowing up land, even if it calls you its best friend. Case in point, Russia. Russia and China are supposedly in a partnership with no limits. They're talking about arms transfer in the war in Ukraine. But that does not stop China from swallowing Russian territory, or at least trying to. Tonight, we'll tell you how Beijing is testing the limits of this no-limits partnership. China is changing the names of Russian territories. A press release has set the cat among the pigeons. It comes from China's Ministry of Natural Resources. Listen to what it says. China's Ministry of Natural Resources has just issued new regulations on map content which require the addition of old Chinese names to the current Russian pronounced geographical names of 8 places along the Russian-Chinese border. The Chinese side released a map. It calls Vladivostok as Hai Shen Wai, the Sakhalin Island as Ku Ye Dao, and the Stanovoy Range as the Outer Shingan Range. The message is quite clear. China is taking claim on Russian lands. And what is the basis of this claim? This story dates back to the 19th and 20th centuries. This was a time when the Qing dynasty ruled China some 100 years ago. The Russian Empire launched an attack on China. The Qing dynasty of China lost that battle. It gave up a significant amount of territory. Now, more than a century later, China wants it back. And this is not a theory. China has launched a proper campaign to get Russian land. Its state mouthpieces are pushing this narrative and they're making sweeping claims. I'll give you an example. This was published last week in Chinese. We have a machine-translated version of what it says. Listen to this. Anyone who has studied history understands that these were the results of the unequal treaties signed by China and Russia. The loss of 1.7 million square kilometers of land has become an eternal pain in the history of the Chinese nation. We found this on a Chinese website. And Chinese censors could easily take this down, like they take down a pile of content that they don't agree with. But last we checked, this piece has not been removed by China, perhaps because this is becoming China's official position. China believes it can claim Russian territories. And this is not the first time they've brought this up. In 2020, Vladivostok was celebrating. It was the 160th anniversary of the founding. On that day, the Russian embassy in China posted a video, and it led to a massive backlash. Chinese diplomats, Chinese journalists, they all criticized Russia. In fact, I have one of those posts. This is what it says. The history of Vladivostok is from 1860, when Russia built a military harbor, but the city was Hai Shen Wai as Chinese land before Russia annexed it via the unequal Treaty of Beijing. A Chinese diplomat also left a comment. Back then, he was working in the Chinese embassy in Pakistan. He said, and I'm quoting, "Isn't this what in the past was our Hai Shen Wai?" So the Chinese have always believed and said that the Russian land belongs to them. And now they're reviving this claim, complete with new maps. And Beijing has timed it to perfection. Just last week, China proposed a peace plan for Ukraine. It mostly echoed Russian talking points. Zelensky is interested. He wants to talk to Xi Jinping about it. Remember, they haven't spoken even once since the war began. But Russia is not on board. It wants Chinese weapons to go on fighting the war. And in the middle of all of this, China is taking claim on Russian lands. If you're a China watcher, you won't be surprised by any of this. This is an old tactic. This is exactly how the Chinese operate. It's called their salami slicing strategy. What is salami slicing? Taking control of territories incrementally, one slice at a time. China has done it with India and Bhutan. It has encroached on 36 hectares of land in Nepal. And it has done the same with other neighbors. So if Russia is not careful, it could become the next victim. So much for a no-limits partnership.